So after that guy in web news, Stephen skateboarded his way onto the set. Serious issue, though. We've had protests in Lisbon overnight, the Portuguese government announcing its budget plans for the next year, Stephen.
Yeah, and it's not good news for workers. I mean, that's the long and short of it. The budget in 2013 includes the toughest tax rises since Portugal secured its bailout last year. It's thought that the hikes will amount to up to 3 months' pay for some middle-income workers. They're the worst hit by this. The Portuguese finance minister also confirmed during his budget speech that Portugal will stay in recession for a third year in 2013. Oliver Farry reports.
Crowds of protesters mass outside the Portuguese Parliament building to vent their anger at the government's latest budget, which will pinch Portuguese workers even more. Demonstrators wave red cards and say the budget will be the death warrant for Pedro Passos Coelho's government.
I'm protesting against the state budget. The people are being robbed.
The government will fall and democracy will work for the people. Democracy will be on our side, but we have to put pressure on this government so it falls as soon as possible.
Finance Minister Vítor Gaspar presented the budget earlier on Monday. He himself described the tax increases of up to 30% as enormous, but that the government had no choice if it were to get the national deficit down to levels demanded by the Troika.
The road we must travel is not easy, given the difficulty of the situation. It's normal that at this time doubts arise in relation to the success of the adjustment programme. However, this situation is temporary and part of the adjustment that we have to do.
But it could be at the expense of his government's survival, as it is the object of discontent from the Portuguese people, already hit hard by unemployment and salary cuts. Some economists have warned that the government's measures, which include pension cuts and a swathe of tax increases, could send the Portuguese economy into a Greek-style spiral of economic depression. Portugal is set to face a third successive year of recession in 2013.
Well, that's Portugal. Now to Greece. The Prime Minister saying his country's seen the worst of the crisis, but still more austerity on the way.
Yeah, 13.5 billion euros worth, actually. That's how much Antonis Samaras is negotiating with his international lenders for. In exchange, he'll get the next tranche of Greece's bailout money. It's 31.5 billion euros. Greece needs that money before the end of November, before it runs out of cash. But the Prime Minister has been speaking to an investment conference in Athens. He said that he supported his demand for longer time to pay these bills. It was supported by the IMF. We're still waiting for support for Europe from that. But he's telling investors that Greece has turned a corner and there won't be a modern tragedy in a year's time. Let's listen in.
Difficulties? Of course, there are still a lot. But now everyone recognises that we have made great progress and we can succeed. The worst is over. And soon the prospects will be visible to everyone. And hope will be tangible.
Greek Prime Minister there. Now, the United Nations is warning that food prices remain dangerously high, prompting concern of another global food crisis. Today, it's World Food Day, and the UN estimates that 870 million people around the globe are going hungry. Now, France's Agriculture Minister has called for food reserves to be set up in vulnerable countries to help ease the crisis.
On World Food Day, ministers and experts will be discussing the issue of global hunger. According to the FAO, 870 million people suffer from malnutrition, down from 925 million in 2010.
1 in 8 people around the world are still hungry. In a world of plenty that already has enough food to feed all. This is unacceptable.
In the past 2 decades, the number of hungry people fell 30% in the Asia-Pacific region. But in Africa, things got worse, with 238 million hungry people, up from 175 million 20 years ago.
In sub-Saharan Africa, the numbers of hunger are increasing. A second important area is the Northeast, Near East and North Africa. Mainly due to the conflicts in the region, we also saw the number of hungry people increasing in the area.
At the FAO, country representatives will also be discussing food prices. In the past year, wheat went up 39% and corn 29% because of the drought in the US and Russia.
A look now at some of the other day's business news in brief. Shares in the Japanese mobile phone company SoftBank have risen by over 10% after details of its $20 billion takeover of US network Sprint were announced. The company stocks had plummeted in value over concerns of how it would finance purchasing 70% of Sprint.
Internet giant Yahoo has poached a senior executive from rival Google. Enrique de Castro was one of Google's top advertising executives, but he will follow the new CEO Marissa Mayer in her move to Yahoo, where he'll become the chief operating officer. De Castro is the first Google executive the Mayor has hired to join her in her new job.
And French luxury group LVMH, which owns brands including Louis Vuitton and Moet Champagne, reported a slowdown in sales growth in the 3 months to the end of September. Weaker demand for its fashion, watches and jewellery products meant like-for-like sales were up by just 6%. It comes after warning from rival Burberry of tougher conditions in the luxury goods market.
Let's look at the markets then. How are they doing today?
Well, Asian markets opened up this morning after positive news from the US overnight. Citigroup there had reported better than expected profits that helped boost all the Asian shares. You can see the biggest gains are in Japan on the Nikkei. The SoftBank gains we were just talking about there helped lift that index.
Now, if you're watching this time yesterday, Stephen gave us a very nice graphic explaining exactly who the runners and riders were for the Nobel Prize for Economics. It's been announced now, of course. Who was the eventual winner?
The eventual winner, it was two men, and they carried out research independently, but they were awarded the prize together. They're Alvin Roth and Lloyd Sharpley. Their work combines to present a solution to the central economic problem of supply and demand. How do they coincide? It's been used, the effect of their research has been used in areas like matching employers to jobs and students with schools, but it's best known for its being used to match kidney donors to patients, an system that was put in place in New England hospitals by Alvin Roth in 2004. He spoke yesterday after the good news.
Economics has somehow a reputation among some parts of the public as being boring, about being about prices and statistics. But I've always thought of economics as being not just part of the social sciences, but part of the humanities, because it gives us a window into people's lives at some of the biggest crossing points when they get into schools and universities, when they get jobs, when they choose careers, when they get married.
Yeah, well done to them. Now, we've got some company results which just come out today. This is from the pharmaceutical giant Roche.
Yeah, the Swiss company reported better than expected profits for the third quarter of the year. They rose by 15% in the 3 months to the end of September to just over 9.3 billion euros. The gains led by strong sales of their cancer treatment drugs, as sales in other areas of their products were falling, as we've seen elsewhere in the pharmaceutical industry.
And right at the end of the business news, we've got some celebrations for you, something to cheer you up. This is at a French retail icon.
Yeah, visitors to Paris will know Galeries Lafayette, one of the iconic department stores here. Celebrating 100 years of the completion of its iconic dome.
Beautiful.
The Coupole, as it's known, was part of the building on Boulevard Haussmann when the store moved to in 1912. It had existed before for 19 years on Rue Lafayette, where it opened. The store is marking the event with special light exhibition by the artist Jan Kersale.
Does look beautiful. It's a fantastic dome. They hang an enormous Christmas tree right inside it as well for Christmas. So if you are coming to Paris for Christmas, go and have a look. All right, Stephen, thank you very much. Stephen with the business news here on France 24, the latest news after the break.